Turf Talk with Drew Miller.
On this episode of Tiger Turf Talk, we host the Vice President of United Turf and Track, based out of Oklahoma, Mr. Jeff Salmon. It was such an honor to have him on. We discussed so many different aspects of what United Turf and Track are doing across the states of Arkansas and Oklahoma, how he started off around 3 or 4 years ago, adding to the natural grass side of the company while helping boost the use of artificial turf in certain spaces. It is fantastic to see someone who has had such a prominent role in the industry, from working at Oklahoma University as the head groundskeeper to finding his new home at United Turf and Track and taking all of the different things that he learned from his day-to-day operation and bolstering the company and creating a better opportunity for those that are in need of skilled, certified sports field managers and their knowledge to better their overall playability, safety, and aesthetics of their fields. And it's truly awesome to see his passion for turf grass and how he became to love this industry and how he took that passion and gave it forward through volunteering with the Stma to the point where he actually became the president and served on the board for many years and continues to serve as a great prominent leader in this industry. We can't thank him enough for taking the time. It is fantastic to hear what he has to say and learn from everything that he is trying to teach everyone that is interested in this industry and who are in need of the knowledge that he has for them, whether it's a high school athletic director or the groundskeeper at Arkansas. We really enjoyed his time, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of Tiger Turf Talk. Good morning and welcome to the 49th episode of Tiger Turf Talk. I'm your host, Drew Miller. Today we have on an awesome guest. We have the Vice President of United Turf and Track, Mr. Jeff Salmon. How are you doing this morning?
Very good, Drew. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. I remember you messaged me about a couple months ago and talking about what you guys were working on and everything. I actually remember when you made the transition from the Big 12 to United Turf and Track, and it was kind of a shock for a lot of people because you were such a prominent figure in college athletics and everything that you were doing. What was that transition sort of like for you, going from, again, a college athletic portion to such a, and I think it was pretty young at the time when you made that transition. It wasn't even a 10-year-old company for field construction, and I really so much more than that. Sort of, how was that transition for you, and how has it been since you've been there?
Yeah, I mean, at first, I've been in college athletics for 25 years. And so to make the change from what I used to do every day to, something different, something new and challenging, it was a little tough at first. I kept always wanting to put on my sports field manager hat, and now I got a different hat on now. And so it wasn't that difficult a decision to make. One, for health reasons. I had some health issues back when toward the end of my time at OU. And so I wanted to stick around with my family. So I decided to go this route. And I've always had a passion for building athletic fields. Any place that I've stopped along the way, whether it be University of New Mexico or the Baltimore Ravens or Northwestern University, I was building fields. So I always had that passion to build fields, and it's something I wanted to pursue. One thing about Oklahoma, where I live, we don't really have a dedicated certified sports field manager, certified field builder here in the state. And I always felt like this was an area in Oklahoma that could use that. And so that was what helped better my transition, knowing I was going to work for a company that was a certified field builder. To me, that as we'll talk about later, is just a professionalism. And so I helped I'm a certified sports field manager as well. And our company are certified field builders. And we're the only ones like that combination in the state of Oklahoma and Arkansas where we operate. So that was the easy part of the transition for me, and knowing that fields are still going to need to get built, and I'm advocate of making sure they're built the right way. So
Absolutely. And we can get into that right now. So it was one of the questions. It's not quite often when you see a company like United where I wouldn't say they're localized, but they're in a certain range of the country, have that certification and be a part of, I think it's the American field construction. I
sports
could be
builder.
wrong. Thank you. Okay. So with that and having that sort of label and not really a label, really just a level of professionalism, could you sort of speak to how that, and then your certified sports field manager, how it plays a role in, again, sort of the success of the company, and really just overall how when a customer or a client sees that, they're like, okay, yeah, they're going to do a really good job. They know what they're doing. And sort of, again, how that was sort of your best decision-making process when you saw that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's all about the professionalism, and so I think that is key, and that's what as a sports field manager, we promoted ourselves as sports field managers, the CSFMs, amongst our employers. How is that? That's not any different when it comes to professionalism of people that build the athletic fields, and creating that professionalism, and knowing that the fields are going to be built right. And so to me, that's a big aspect. Speaking to architects and engineers, I hope that they continue to use that certification as a part of their requirements when it comes to time to build, because there's some that are out there that are they do a good job. Maybe they're not certified, but that certification helps ensure to the owner that their field is getting built right. So that's kind of how it goes with that. So
you made this transition and everything. With your role as the vice president, what does that sort of entail? Again, it's such a large company. You have so many different services, from the actual field construction to field maintenance for natural turf to synthetic work, all the different things. What does that role as vice president entail, and how have you sort of seen that change since you first got there?
yes. So when I first started, it was the company started at United Turf Track started as a synthetic turf company, and our owner wanted to expand with the natural grass portion, natural grass construction, as well as natural grass services, which I call sports field services, where we do maintenance on athletic fields, aerifying, overseeding, top dressing, and that sort of thing, for schools across the state of Oklahoma and Arkansas. So now as a company, we got full rounded company, but all facets of sports fields. And what I particularly do is help get us. I have a lot of relationships with the college athletics and people across the state, in Arkansas, and then I also help with any consultations that are needed at schools when it comes to laser grading, providing estimates for them. And now on the synthetic field side, I work with architects and engineers, developing our scope, from our scope to the finished product, and to close out when the project is done. I also handle for the company all of our social media and website. And so all in all, as my roles, I have quite a few responsibilities, and there's still quite a few times I still get back on the tractor too. So kind of, you got to have all these different hats that I wear, and pretty much solidifies everything that we do. Our owner, he does a lot of our estimating for all of our big projects, and also forecast the things that we're going to be doing in the future, as well as our president does that as well. So all in all, our owner and our president and myself as vice president just help form the body of keeping people and food on the table for our employees, and getting things scheduled for the whole year.
Absolutely. And something that I'm curious about with how large the company is, how far out are you sort of forecasting your work, with it being a synthetic company and adding the natural grass is much more, I think, more again, sort of concise, like understanding that, okay, we have the year window, we can sort of estimate how many people need us at certain amount of times. And then with synthetic, you obviously have your 10-year spans. Usually, sometimes they try and push it. You know what I mean? Where you need to renovate those synthetics that you've put in before. Um, how often are you guys sort of forecasting like 5 to 10 years out? How often is it just really just a couple years? And how does that sort of play a role in maybe the growth of the company or the just again sustainability? You were talking about putting food on the table for your workers and everything like that.
Yeah. So for right now, we have work projected to take us all the way through to February. Right now, pretty solid with all our projects that we got going on, and always looking to the future. We usually have a pretty good ear to the ground on other projects that are potentially going to happen. But on with those projects as well, you have to win them. You have to win those projects. So it's always it's a constant shifting of schedules to make other projects to work in. And so that's what's one of the aspects that myself as a former owner, or as a sports field manager, was that I thought this is how it's supposed to work. When you get into this side of there's a lot of aspects of the job, scheduling, different things that come up, just your product lines and your flow of from your manufacturers, getting products and that sort of thing, to schedule it to flow right. You have a start date and an end date, and there's so much that can happen in between. And so that's, to me, is like one of the big challenges that I really enjoy, making it all work, put together. But that's at the end of the day, we're working for the owners, we're working for the customers, and we want to provide the best, safe, aesthetic looking safe field that we can possibly give them. And because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's about putting athletes on good, safe playing surfaces, and something that schools and owners and municipalities can be proud of. And so that's at the end of the day, that's a focus of all that we do, is how we can do to make our athletic fields better and safer.
Absolutely. Something that I was curious about, and I just lost my train of thought. I apologize for that.
It's all right.
With everything that sort of goes into it, you sort of mentioned it. You have to win it, whether it's again a natural grass or synthetic. If you could sort of explain, obviously I've sort of been a part of these, whether it was when I was working in the pros or here at Brentsville. We're actually going through the process now where we're getting a synthetic field put on our practice field. Could you sort of explain the process of being put out to bid? And then on your side as the company, what your job is to sort of win that bid of, say, a synthetic field going into a local high school?
Sure. And that's going on 3 years, being with United Turf and Track. It's one of the things that I'm still learning. My owner, he's been in it for quite some time, and our president, he's been in quite some time, and they know what it's going to take to win a job. And you can't do them for free. And so it's so the whole process, how it works typically, especially on projects that are bonded projects that we bid on for public, it's public money that's involved, whether it be a school district or a municipality. The documents come out. There's a bid date. We put together our best foot forward, estimating and knowing how long it's going to take to do a job, and then we just for our owner and president, it's a feel, what it takes to win a job, and sometimes you win them, sometimes you don't. And so it's if once you do win the job, then the whole process goes to when you start a schedule, when the work schedule is going to start, and then submittals and contract information that's needed to get the job started. And then from there, you work on the start date and the completion date to get to a final project timeline. So there's a lot that's involved behind the scenes. I mean, I could talk to you for hours about what I've learned. But it's been, like I said, again, it's been a challenge, and sometimes you just have to do the best that you can. And like I said, it's all about the company and what we can do for the company to keep people going.
That's great. And what I'm curious also, the next sort of step into it, after you have won the bid, and again, like you said, you can't do it for free. And it's funny because sometimes I've seen a couple of bids where I'm like, there's no human possible way that they could actually do the job at that price. And I can only imagine what the product is that's going to come out of it. After you have won that bid, what are the following steps? Are you working with architects, engineers? Do you have architects, engineers in-house that you have on payroll that create the plans, go over it, and then sort of how does that lead into the actual construction part with your company? Sort of, again, putting out that safe, aesthetically pleasing playing surface for those athletes.
Yeah. So if the public job and there's public money that's involved, then yes, it goes through the design team with architects and engineers, and I work with them through the owner. A lot of times we already have a relationship with the owner, but for the chain of command, we work through the architects and engineers to produce the right products that are specified in the project. When it comes to design build, which is a little bit different, that's where we do have engineers that we look to that helps provide us those documents, and then we're working straight with the owner on their field. And so, and that, again, it basically ends up at the end of the day following the same pattern, whether it's a publicly funded job or it's a privately funded job, to get to the end product. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of stuff to work through to have it documented for liability purposes for the architects and engineers, that everything has crossed their T's and dotted their I's when it comes to different specifications, whether it be for products or testing or whatever the case may be for the actual field, that after it's all said and done, this is how the field was built. This is everything that goes into it. These are the warranties, and these are the things that are needed to legally on the legal side. So the legal side to even just building a field. So that's pretty much that in a nutshell, how it works.
That's great. And the legal aspect, it kind of gets a little crazy, It's funny because we just had a greenhouse built at our site, and I remember when I was working with the greenhouse companies trying to get bids and whatnot, and you would hear the price, and then at the end you'd hear the price that it cost our county to build, and it's just because of like everything.
I'm gonna move.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I'm gonna move. Sorry.
No, you're totally fine. But like, whether it was something to amend the soil so that it's within the right range or stuff like that, where it's just like it adds so much more just to be within the legal limits of our district, so it's crazy. You had spoken about how when you came on, it was sort of the natural grass side of things coming into the company. And that's incredible because it's important for companies like that to understand the role that natural grass does play. And again, having a certified sports field manager adds so much to your company as a whole. Could you sort of speak to how you've sort of built and how you've expanded those different aspects of the natural grass side? When it comes to, again, putting in a natural grass field, it is very different compared to the artificial. It requires different machinery. Well, most of it's probably similar, but at the same time, You're also adding the services side where you're aerating, verticutting, top dressing. Could you sort of speak to how you constructed that and how you sort of formed that so that it can reach one side of Arkansas to the other side of Oklahoma?
Sure. I was fortunate when I first started. I left University of Oklahoma in February and started in March of 2019 with United Turf and Track. And I was fortunate to have understanding that University of Arkansas was getting ready to convert their field from synthetic back to natural grass. And in this part of the country, sand-based athletic fields are far and few. University of Oklahoma, University of Tulsa, Oklahoma State University, Arkansas. There's only a handful versus like the East Coast or West Coast. There's pretty prominent. So great, this is right up my alley. And so I was probably 2 months on the job, and we were looking to put in for that and converting that field from synthetic back to natural grass and Tahoma 31 sand-based field. And so I just got done doing that as as part of my career for the last 25 years. And so it was great to kind of get my feet wet on this side of the industry right away. And then at the same time, helping our company help build that part of our portfolio. And so since then, we did University of Arkansas. We also did University of Tulsa. We did a soccer field for them. And then we just also did USA softball in 2020. Unfortunately, it was canceled. The NCAA Women's College World Series was canceled last year because of COVID, but this year it happened. So it took a year in the making, but we were able to play a prominent role in that, working with Lloyd Engineering out of Arizona, working with them on that project. And I have that language, I guess, because I've had that language when it comes to sand-based fields and specifications with root zones and drainage systems. So that was the easiest part of my transition into United Turf and Track, and help developing that part of our company. We have plenty of native soil natural grass fields that we work on across the state, and improving those. And our programs that we use to help improve those have been proven. And it comes with good practices, management practices, and improving our heavy clay soils that we have in Oklahoma through our top dressing and programs that we use, using compost and sand. And it just, so all those aspects that I've been doing for, like I said, 25 years or so, just help mold that part of our company. And it's great to see that part of our company get bigger and expand.
That's great. And it seems that it has, a big thing that I was curious about is sort of your levels that you guys work from high school to, again, you were putting in Arkansas, which was a huge project. It was a big deal. I think it was one of the first Tahoma 31 fields that went out. How do you guys sort of find the jobs that you want, in a sense? Like you said, you wanted to be a part of that. You wanted to go and try and win that bid. Trying to word this right. What's the sort of decision-making process on which job makes sense for our company?
Yeah, I mean, it comes to, our nucleus is Oklahoma and Arkansas, and obviously we are the certified field builder in the state, and so we feel that it's our job to go after those jobs that have those prominence. And but at the same time, we also don't want to, we're a smaller company. We're not huge, but we're a smaller company that we have limitations a little bit to maybe where we can and can't perform the best. But we as a company want to perform the best for all our owners and jobs that we do have. So it's a balancing act to do, but any of those jobs that we have that we can go after, we're going to go after. So and that's the hunger that our company has, and I think it comes down to the professionalism. We want to make sure that schools are getting the best possible, when especially when we're doing it, we're putting in athletic fields for them.
Absolutely. Something that, and again, I know it's part of your company, and as a sports field manager, obviously we want to go more natural and whatnot. I do want to ask the question. There has been a trend, and you sort of spoke to the fact like it's far and few where you're seeing your sand-based fields in that area of the country. There's been a trend of artificial turf at all levels. I mean, the Panthers just went synthetic. Our county, all of our game fields, except for ours, because of our program, are going synthetic. My question is sort of in your role and with your company, that's a good thing, as well as, again, sort of helpful for business. What do you think the main reason behind that trend sort of is, and how really, again, I know you know this because, again, you're a certified sports field manager. A lot of people think the artificial is maintenance free and everything is sort of just like, hey, it's done. Let's play for 8 to 10 years and we'll get a new one, How have you sort of seen that trend, and why do you believe that sort of is, again, as we keep moving forward, we keep seeing it?
Well, first and foremost, we're going to build an athletic field for an owner based upon their decision. And as a company, we can do it either way. We can put in a synthetic field, or we can put in a natural grass field. And so that's the diversity. I think that's great about our company, is what we can do is do both. As far as, I don't know all the decisions that administrators use to make the decision of whether or not to put a synthetic field in. A lot of times it can be driven by what everybody else around them is doing. If somebody else has it, then they feel that it's the best for their school to also have it. It comes down to events and a number of events that are happening. A lot of times it has to do with whether or not schools put an investment into their current athletic fields and their maintenance staffs. If they're not going to look to do that with staffing, and we've seen it through COVID, and we've seen it through different facets, staffing for natural grass fields has been decreased. And you're correct in saying synthetic fields do take maintenance, which they do. But I think a lot of administrators have to make the decision, the dollars and cents that are needed to make their best fits possible. And sometimes schools and school districts have, on one field, they have 3 football games and 3 soccer games in a week's time. And that's, to me, if there was good maintenance programs for the grass were put into place, then natural grass should work. But that's not the case a lot of times. They have one guy or 2 guys or 2 people taking care of their athletic fields for the whole district, so to speak. So I think natural grass fields are still there, and there's a lot more natural grass fields that are out there still than there are synthetic fields. It's just decisions that administrators are having to make, and school boards are having to make to have their athletic events on. And at the end of the day, it's sometimes decisions based upon that.
I think the sun's following you.
One more time.
You don't have to. It's just, I think it's kind of funny. Yeah, totally. Something, and again, it might not be a good question to ask you, but obviously there's a place for it, for artificial, and in my area, and I've always thought this because, again, we have enough people to take care of the fields, and there still are baseball and softball, and the practice fields are natural, so they're still taking care of the fields. It's just one less field. Do you think there's a place for it, and where would that place be? And you sort of answered it with the are they going to invest in the facilities managers and all that? What I've sort of seen is that in our county and in our area, I feel like middle schools should have artificial fields because it's still an option for a local high school if they want to go play on that. Say there's rain or something and they don't want to play on their field, they can go play there. But middle schools don't have anyone to take care of their fields. They have athletics on it, and the issue that they have is that their neighborhoods decide to use the field whenever they feel like it and destroy it. So in a sense, like that is sort of a way of combating the issue of, again, not having any money, not having a person to take care of it, and then having all of that traffic of people who are not supposed to be on it are on it. So where do you think that place is, and how have you sort of seen that sort of play a role in Oklahoma and Arkansas with your company?
Well, I mean, again, it comes down to the number of events that schools and school districts are going to have, and that, you know, even as a sports field manager, taking care of natural grass fields, you know, I felt there was a place where synthetic fields could be successful for me when it comes to knowing how to field rotate and how to move fields activities around to where there's taking a little bit of pressure off of some of the natural grass fields, and use the synthetic field to your advantage to help recoup on natural grass. Don't get me wrong. There's still nothing better than a good, safe natural grass playing surface, and it's still so hard to mimic that, and the feel and the smell. Definitely.
There's not a good smell on artificial, I can tell you that. It just burns your nose if you try and go smell it, you know.
It you know, it's a balance where synthetic fields can help you in that aspect, and as a field manager, that help give you advantage to make sure your natural grass fields are still, you know, like tip top shape. One of the trends that we're starting to see in the cycle of synthetic fields in Oklahoma and Arkansas is the number of synthetic baseball and softball fields that are going in, because there hasn't been a commitment to taking care of the fields, and also it also comes down to athletic directors knowing that their number of games that they might have to cancel could also decrease too. So you can have a rain event, and obviously if you're at a high school level, you're not going to have a tarp. You're not going to tarp the field, or maybe you do tarp the field and you leave the tarp on for too long and burn the field, or what have you. But a lot of times it comes down to an athletic director's ease of being able to schedule events and knowing the events can be put through. And on the synthetic fields for baseball and softball, it's not just the whole field; it could be just the infield, and so there's still a natural grass aspect to the field being in the outfield. So you have to mow and paint the outfield. You don't have to worry about taking care of the clay. You just drag the infield with a brush and manage it that way. So there's a lot of factors that are involved and how those decisions are done and made. So yeah, it's a tough decision on administrators and what they feel have to do. And then as sports field managers, we have to be able to take care of both and manage both types of fields.
For sure. Are you doing a lot of work on those baseball fields that you're installing, whether it's replacing first base or if they're doing mounds, batters boxes and whatnot, or are you sort of seeing that sort of like athletic directors like, I don't want to pay for that, they can deal with the hole in the batter's box, you know? Or have you been able to make good relationships to where you are able to come in and again fix those issues for them? Because it really is. I at Virginia Tech, when I worked there, our baseball field was synthetic and the batter's boxes were just something else. I mean, it's crazy the beating that they take and the needs there are, you know, every single game putting in again the infill and making sure that it's even and then coming in and ripping out all that space and putting in new stuff. But you're able to do that with your customers.
Yes, on our natural grass, our service side, the sports field service side, a lot of our customers know that there's an annual maintenance that's needed, and this is about the time of the year for baseball. We play softball fast pitch in the summer into the fall, and then slow pitch. So we had just finished doing a lot of softball fields here recently before July 1st, and so there's many of our clients know that that's part of the maintenance, and they know that we're going to come in, take care of the field, get the fields level, get them so they can drain. They can drain. We know that we're going to rebuild their mound, their batter's box area, and so and then we carry that into the fall, into the winter for baseball, so that baseball fields are ready to go first thing in the spring. So there's always a lot of our clients that know that it's an annual thing, and that's something that we pretty much know that we're gonna do and take care of them every year.
That's great that they know that. That's awesome, because there's a lot of people that are like, all right, it's in. We don't need to worry about it. We're good to go. So that's great. And I think it's a testament to your company and being able to educate while you're sort of helping them. You know what I mean? Last artificial question. I apologize. I know. With artificial, there are so many components in sort of I shouldn't say soil profile, but like the profile of the synthetic. And there have been, as of late, there have been different things from adding a pad to the amount of infill that you're putting in, the amount of sand, amount of crumb rubber, what kind of crumb rubber, whether it's coconut or something else. Again, I can't keep up with all what everybody's trying to figure out, like, to make it better, What's sort of the formula that you guys have come up with your synthetic that works and has been sort of the best sort of, I guess maybe money / management of sort of, again, a pad is a lot of extra work, sort of laying it down, placing it before you lay out the rolls of the synthetic. But again, it does add that little bit of a factor of safety. And then, again, I could be wrong. This is just what I've read and sort of seen in person. What has been your formula? I'm sorry, I'm babbling.
That's all right. Well, the formula is driven by what the owner wants, and then what the architect puts out there for a publicly funded job for anybody to bid on. I think the shock pad, we've seen an uptick in the shock pad being installed on a lot of fields, whether it be a Brock pad or a Schmitz pad. Just that added cushion there. That's, again, trying to mimic natural grass fields as best as possible, and the head injury criterion that's involved, the HIC testing that's involved with surfaces. So our formula is we want to provide the best safe possible field that's allowable within budgeting purposes. That any field, whether it has a shock pad or not, it's always gonna have to pass a GMAX rating test and HIC evaluation test, no matter if it has a pad or not. So safety is always the first and foremost. But like I said, we have seen an uptick in the Brock pads, and one thing that we're starting to see, we see there's a lot more that you see in Texas, but we're starting to see a little bit in Oklahoma, is addition of a organic infill to help with the heat factor involved. And we've installed a couple of Brock fill fields. It's a piney wood that comes from Colorado that can take water, and it's not going to migrate very much compared to a cork or coconut plant or a coconut infill that requires also to be watered and to keep the infill in place. So we're starting to see that. I mean, still the number one still is a rubber sand infill ratio, but now we're starting to see some of these other organic infills that have to have a shock pad underneath of them to meet the ratings. We're starting to see a little uptick in those.
For sure. And it's crazy to me how everybody's like, well, let's try this. Let's do something different here, there, you know. So I sort of want to head back to OU and working at a collegiate level and whatnot. There are so many different things going on in a day when it comes to college athletics, you know, whether it's you have a baseball and a softball game going on, you got to prep for a spring game at the same day or whatever. With everything with that, I understand that with field construction and everything, you were able to be a part of things. Again, even if in Baltimore, I'm sure you were a part of renovations and everything like that. What else were you able to take from your time there and bring over to United Track? Whether that's sort of time management, resource management, allocation of funds, stuff like that, because there is so many different things that you have to be aware of. How have you sort of brought that from, again, your former jobs to now?
Yeah, so being a sports film manager at the collegiate level, there was so many hats that I had to wear, and I felt like at the college level, I went about as high as possible I could go before becoming an administration at the facility level. But I was doing those things at the end of my time at OU, where I was the project manager over different facets of outdoor projects, field projects, lighting projects, that sort of thing. And I think that helped mold a little bit to help my transition to United Turf and Track, because we deal with the same things. In college athletics, it was nice because I had been at the pro level at the Baltimore Ravens. It was 100% football, which was great. Go to the college level, and I'm working on a different field every day: football, baseball, softball, soccer, tennis, you name it, what kind of surface we were working on. Moving over to the commercial side for United Turf and Track, kind of similar. I get to work on different types of fields every day, natural grass, synthetic, and my background and all those things and my language and knowledge of those things that I learned when I was in college helped me with that transition again too. And so, but using those tools to the best of my ability. And again, I never knew when I first got into this profession that you could get paid to mow grass. And I've loved it. And this is an industry that I've always loved and have been passionate about. You know, if there's something that my dad always taught me was if there's something that you love, just, you know, go with it and give it 100%. And that's what I feel like I've done throughout my time in my career. And moving from collegiate to what I do now, I still get to stay in the industry and still get to promote to professionalism and some of those things that I've learned along the way that I can pass on to others as this industry evolves.
I love that for sure. I mean, it's crazy when you do find that thing and it just clicks, you know, you're 100% in on it, and it's just great. And I'm the same way. I found it sort of in teaching and again turf with everything together. It's been incredible. So I sort of want to go with what you were talking about when you sort of developed your time and when you became a really prominent figure in the turf grass industry to the point where you served as the president of the STMA. Could you sort of discuss where you found that passion? You know, when was it that you really truly found a love for turf grass and you knew this is what you wanted to do?
Sure. I've always had a love for sports, and my athletic abilities only took me so far. And so when I first got into college, I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist or athletic trainer, and that way I could stay close connection to sports. And when that didn't go through, and I went on the 5-year plan to college to finish my degree, I grew up farming, and so I worked at the Turfgrass Research Center at the University of Missouri when I was doing my undergrad program there, and it was like outside farming, and I just loved it, and I fell in love with it. I said, "This is what I want to do," and So I rushed through my undergraduate program and then did an internship for the Cleveland Browns. Would have been my redshirt senior year in college, and there was where I learned from one of my mentors, Vince Paterozzi, and my major professor, Dr. David Minner, along with Mike Andreessen, who's the field manager at Iowa State. Those were all my kind of mentors that helped me get really started. And I finished my master's program at Iowa State, worked on a lot of construction stuff for Dr. David Minner at the research at Iowa State when I was getting my master's degree. And I just developed from there. I was fortunate after my master's degree to go straight into the pros, which is, may or may not be hard, but I had my background had put me forward to put me at that level. And that's where the professionalism for me and what I did from there on out in my college career to really help mold where I started from. So, and it just went from there. And I ended up spending 12 years at the University of Oklahoma before I moved over to what I'm doing now. And it's a new challenge, and it's a challenge every day. So that's one thing I could advise to students out there is to find that passion, be a sponge, listen a lot, and just take it all in, do the best job that you can possibly do, and work hard.
100%. I couldn't agree more. Something that I found curious when I read up on you before this, your master's degree, there are a lot of golf course managers and superintendents that go and take that master's degree because, again, for some reason it's not an industry standard, but again, a higher end golf course, there are a lot of guys who have that master's degree. It's not very common to have a sports field manager that has a master's degree. And it's so beneficial. I mean, I obviously I have a master's degree in something else, but it's so beneficial for, again, that time where you were working with different things to understand for, again, a decision-making process at such a high level, whether it's the pros or at Oklahoma. Could you sort of discuss how that master's degree sort of played a role in your career and how beneficial it was? Even if somebody who's in college now is considering a master's degree that knows that they don't want to move forward to a doctorate and wants to be a sports field manager.
Yeah, I kind of felt like Tommy Boy, where I felt like, I'd be in school for 6 years and they're called doctors. Well, I knew I needed to get done with a degree program and what I considered a little bit faster time. And so I rushed through my undergraduate program to graduate, and I felt like I needed some more education. And for me, that was only for me. And I felt like but by doing that master's degree, I added some more components to my education, and got to work with Dr. Minner with a lot of the stuff that he's done with stadium construction. And so I was at the research center at Iowa State and helped build a lot of his research areas, and again got a little bit more knowledge in the construction side of it. And so the master's degree is not for everybody. It worked out. It worked for me, and it helped push me forward and stretch some of those things to make it go further, and how I was going to go about the rest of my career. So it was just another couple of years of education that I felt like I needed.
Well, I'm sure it played huge roles for now, being in infield construction and everything. So definitely, it's awesome. Something that I'm curious about, because again, I was lucky enough to work at Virginia Tech and be a part of the craziness that is college athletics, not knowing what's the day's going to hold. I remember one day I was working softball and I thought that was it. And then we had ACC tournament going on and everyone left me there as a senior in college. I'm like, oh gosh. And when a storm comes in, work in Lane Stadium, and there's lightning within 10 miles, they're like, you got to move it to the indoor. And I'm like, you want me to move 3 teams at 9 o'clock at night with like 150 fans to an indoor facility with no seating. Okay, great. Let's do it. With your role being the sort of the person driving everything and the decisions, how difficult was it for you when it comes to understanding where you need certain aspects? So money, something that I always was so fascinated with. I don't know if you know Casey Underwood or not. Um, Knowing how much money goes where for the number of facilities that you had, understanding labor when we have 10 people working, we only have X amount of hours and days that we have for certain people, and then you have your full-time guys. What is it like to truly understand all of the needs and making those correct decisions for your facility?
Yeah, that's one of the things that our administrators in college never really understood how we got the job done. To think through all those facets and all the variables that go into a changing environment. It's definitely a balancing act. A balancing act that again, it's got to be almost a trial by fire. Trial by fire, like your experience was for that softball game. I mean, you don't actually get that experience unless you've been through it, and it's nothing you can learn in a book, and it's nothing you can do unless you had that experience to do. And it's just something as field manager you develop. And I wish again the college administrators would see and administrators in general across our industry that we have to make those type of decisions. Besides working with Mother Nature and working with a growing plant. To provide the best facilities and fields that we can, giving any circumstances that we have, whether it be budgeting or labor or equipment or whatever the case may be, putting all those factors together. And again, at the end of the day, you're providing a safe field for athletes to play on, not knowing all what it took to get to that day, what all it took to get to that event. So it's definitely a big balancing act, and it's something that you just have to develop, and it just takes time. I mean, coming out of college as a student and saying, okay, I'm going to jump right in. Trust me, it takes a little bit of time. It's something you don't really want to jump into that fast to do, and just give it some time, be patient, and learn.
So here's the funny part. We're going to get into how I thought Oklahoma was SEC school, which, like you said, I called it. It came out yesterday. I wrote this 3 days ago. I'm just saying I called it. They're going SEC. We were talking about how Brandon Harden had brought you up in our podcast, and how really collegiate groundskeepers, there's just sort of this unspoken like bond and understanding. Again, we were just talking about all the hardships that you go through and all the crazy experiences that sort of come together. What do you think is sort of that factor or that relationship between these, again, collegiate groundskeepers, and how that sort of has developed, and understanding how unique that is in compared to maybe, again, people who are on the construction side of things, and what it sort of meant to you and making those relationships and still having those relationships. Again, you're working with colleges in Arkansas and Oklahoma and everywhere. So
I think one of the biggest thing that brings everybody, it's a small world. All right, it's a small industry. Everybody knows everybody. I think the one thing that draws everybody back together is everybody's work ethic. I think the work ethic amongst sports field managers that is unbeknownst to the rest of the world. The work ethic that's needed to manage and take care of athletic fields, people, facilities, and it's not an 8-hour job. It's not an 8-hour job, and 8-hour a day job. It's more. It's more than that. You're thinking about it all the time. During the week, weekends. Did I turn the water off after I put the tarp on? Did I forget to turn the water off for this event? It's always in your mind, and it's not any different what I do now. There's a lot that goes into thinking about the next steps and planning ahead, being proactive, and be ready to jump and adapt to whatever comes your way at that moment. And what's important takes priority at that moment. So I think that's one thing that all of us, as we've been in the sports field industry and the college level, or the pro level, or the Parks and Rec or K through 12s, there's always that work ethic that really bonds everybody together, that to get our industry out there and show that we do as professionals.
That's a great take on it. I've never heard that before, and it's so true. The people that I've worked for and the people that I've gotten to know in the sports field industry, it's unparalleled. The work that's done. And you can't get it done without that work ethic. So I think that's awesome, and that's crazy accurate. You sort of spoke to some of your mentors, and really, again, the ones that played the role in sort of you sort of developing that passion and finding your love for the industry and what you wanted to do for the rest of your life. Was there any sort of advice that has sort of stuck with you from them that has been sort of a driving force behind you getting to this point in your career?
I think I didn't mention him, but my number one mentor was my dad, and my dad at a young age taught me that work ethic, and I think that work ethic that I've been talking about helped bring me through to the mentors that I mentioned, that I was willing to do what it takes to get the job done, 110% every day. So I think that that would speak volumes. I mean, your actions speak volumes about, and your actions plus your passion just help speak volumes to what how you're gonna your careers you're gonna work in this industry. And I think those are the things. Work ethic and passion are the two things that I think help push that along for me. And I think that could be said for students that are coming into the industry.
And you've been able to work with some of those students. At OU, you obviously have student workers, you have different people that have approached you about jobs and whatnot, assistants who, again, probably moved up into new roles, whether that's at a college or professional level. With the work ethic and everything, what were you trying to educate them on most to be able to be successful in this industry?
I'd say don't sweat the small stuff. Don't sweat the small stuff. It's there's plenty of those small things that go around, but at the end of the day, it's providing those fields. That's first and foremost. So you got to learn to, again, prioritize, put those things that are first and foremost. What's gonna be best for your school, for your field, and to let those other things take care of themselves.
I sort of want to go back to Stma, and with working with them, it takes a lot of volunteer hours, a lot of time, a lot of energy. When you were president, there's obviously years that lead up into your presidency and different roles with that. What was sort of your draw into being a part of that? Because, again, we've been able to talk to different individuals that served on the board, Sun Roseline. We have Dr. Goatley, who is a former president as well. It's really a labor of love and a lot of extra time that you put forward for the organization. And again, not paid or anything like that. What was sort of the driving force behind that? And what do you think was sort of your, I don't know if legacy is the right word for it, but the things that you were able to add to the organization to make it better when you were
Sure.
Sorry.
My first introduction to Stma was I was a student scholarship winner, and back when I was at Iowa State, and so that was pretty much set me forward. My passion was for many years was students and student development for this industry. because this is something I found, and if I found it, there's others that could find this as a profession. And one of my first things that I was done to do was when Mike Andreessen was the president of Stma, he put me to charge me with starting the student challenge. And that's how the student challenge got started, the student challenge. And so that's kind of where it went, and I just got myself involved in different committees, and then a good friend Troy Smith asked me one year I was able to be appointed nominee to the board, and that just took off from there. And I was on the board for 8 years, and along the way, it was about developing Stma as the go-to industry recognition, go-to for everything sports field related, domestically and internationally. And that was where my passion took me to that, and helped push Stma to do that. So a lot of good people to work with along the way. I got to meet a lot of good people across the country and network with them and develop relationships, and again, put sports turf management in the forefront, and to have Stma be that governing body, so to speak, for us across the country.
And you guys definitely made that. And it's funny because when I sort of discuss it with people, when I first started, I can't remember my first Stma conference. I think it was 2016, but the level in which it's grown, and sort of that time frame of seeing that sort of, again, certified sports field managers. They just came out with the sports field, I think it's sports field certification or something. I don't remember what the specific name of it is, but the development of the organization has been incredible, and the work of you and your colleagues has been, again, unparalleled. So I am grateful for what you do for people like me and for my kids. So this might be a redundant question, but we sort of talked about collegiate athletic, that relationship you guys have, and you were just talking about you got to meet and network with a lot of different people. What do you think with Stma, sort of that network, and how incredible it has really reached? I mean, I talk about it with this podcast, the amount of people we've been able to talk to from all over the world has been insane, and it's all a result of the relationships I've made in my career and the relationships that I've been able to create through the Stma. Could you sort of speak to sort of how that has become such a big part of an individual's career, and again, being a part of creating that for everyone?
Sure. I mean, you go to college, go to school, you learn a lot of things in the books, how to work with plants and how to work with grass and those sort of things. But then you get into Stma, and you get a network of individuals that have different experiences and environmental conditions across the country, and you just get to learn. And that's one of the things that I've always liked about our industry, is how forthcoming people in our industry are with information. Everybody's willing to give information to help the next field manager do their job better or do things better. And that's one thing I've always liked. And I've heard a lot of people from the golf industry that have kind of come over to the sports turf and say how much, the wealth of information that gets passed along is so prominent compared to the other industries that they've been in. And so that's to me is the key, and that's what helps the network. Like I said, we have a small industry that everybody end up knowing everybody, and if somebody knows somebody, and you can always pick up the phone and call. And that's one thing that I've always liked about our Sports Managers Association. You can pick up, look through the catalog of names and pick up a phone, and they'll call you and they'll talk to you. And so that's what I think is really cool.
So we sort of wrap up our podcast with these two questions. I don't know why we did it, but I think they're pretty interesting. The first one is, if there was something that you would have liked to known when you first started in the industry? And again, it could be just to know, not to make easier, but understand better. What would that be and why?
That's a good question. And that's a loaded question too.
Sorry.
You're but I mean, it took so much longer in my education career to figure out what I wanted to do, and so I think again for us in this industry, there has to be a passion. You gotta have to love to go to work every day and do what we do. If there's not the passion there, it's gonna be hard to go to work every day and have a good feel about your job and what you're gonna do. I think if there's one thing that if I would have done differently or what I wish I would have known was the amount of dedication that's needed for this job. But once I put my foot into it, and I told you before, I was sold, and that's me. But this industry, you got to be 100% in. I mean, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. But again, the work ethic and being dedicated, I think that's important for people to know that's needed to put your best foot forward.
Definitely, I couldn't agree with you more. It's not something. Part of my friend, it's not something you can half-ass. It's not
That's right.
anywhere close. Because if you do, you're probably gonna hurt someone or get fired. The last thing that we always ask. Sorry, my dog's showing up.
Yeah.
What would be your best words of advice for our kids, being at the high school level and really being introduced to what we do at such a young age?
Sure. I think get yourself involved. Get involved. Call and contact other sports field managers and get some advice from them. And I think just like I said, be a sponge, be a source, be helpful. Always be there as a way that your employer, your professor, teacher know that you're going to put your best foot forward and work hard and do the best possible job you can each and every day. And our work, sometimes there's no days off. And so I think that's probably one of the things as this newer generation of students come along is it's not easy. It's not for everybody. And if you find that this is a passion that you want to do, give it 110% and do what's right for this industry to make fields safe, playable, looking good, and putting that reputation out for what we do as an industry.
Definitely. And we've actually have a bunch of kids who have actually really started to take an interest. And I actually just went and visited 3 of our students. They're working at a golf course right now. We only have a minor league stadium, which I have one kid actually working there, but it's an hour away. I'm like, I don't know how you work there. That's a long drive for a daily commute, but I'm proud of him as well. Yeah, it's really great to see, again, such at a young age, kids really taking a passion for what we do and moving forward, and
well, I appreciate the passion you have for what you're doing right now and getting professionals on and giving those tidbits of advice for those across the country. So I appreciate, Drew, everything that you're doing.
I appreciate that. It means the world to me coming from you. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time this morning. I know that you're a busy man and everything. And thank you for the hats, by the way. And I've got the one right here. It stays here every episode. So keep up the fantastic work, especially bringing natural grass to a company that needed it. So I appreciate you doing that. And again, everything you did when you were working as the STMA president. And before that and now, I really do appreciate it.